Recently, an Alberta judge made a ruling that halts the petition process for an Alberta independence referendum. That decision is being hailed as a victory by some, while others see it as a slap in the face to democracy. Well, today's guest joins us from the Edmonton area. Dr. Michael Wagner is an independent researcher and writer with a PhD in political science, the senior Alberta columnist for the Western Standard, and the author of No Other Option: Self-Determination for Alberta. Good to have you with us today, Michael.
Thank you for inviting me on.
All right, so judging from the title of your book there, I think I know which side of the stance that you are on. So Michael, when you look at this recent court ruling, do you think that the judge got it wrong? And if so, do you where did she get it wrong?
Yes, I do think she got it wrong. And I think she got it wrong because she quashed the referendum on the basis of the duty to consult. Now, the duty to consult is an actual thing in law that governments must consult with First Nations on policies and proposals that could affect the First Nations people. But normally it's the proposal or the policy that's brought forward to the First Nations and to consult with them. But this is done too early in the process. Like the judge wanted the duty to consult to be done too early in the process. She wanted the government to consult the First Nations before the petition that even goes forward, before the referendum goes forward. And that's too early in the process, according to the way we've done it in the past. So she should have let it go forward, and then the duty consult will definitely come in later.
Okay, so once the referendum is done and we see which side of the issue people are on mostly.
That's right.
So, yeah. Okay, so if it passed, then you go through with, okay, interesting. Now, the government of Alberta is appealing this court decision. So what if they lose the appeal? Can the province still go ahead with an independence referendum on October 19th?
Yes, the Alberta government has the authority to put a referendum to the people of Alberta. So even if they lose the court decision on the basis of this petition, they could still hold that same referendum if they wanted, yes.
Okay, let me get your thoughts on something here. So what's interesting is that the justice in this case, she was, I guess, appointed federally. So if Alberta were to gain independence, would it be freed from the federal government appointing judges for Alberta?
Yes, well, if there's a successful independence referendum, the first step is for the provincial government to negotiate with the federal government and the other provinces about becoming independent. So assuming Alberta did become its own country, an independent country, it would definitely be released from being under any federal authority that currently exists right now. It would have to, have its own court system where the government of Alberta would appoint judges, yes.
Yeah, interesting. Your book is called No Other Option: Self-Determination for Alberta. Now, the Prime Minister, Carney, and Danielle Smith have signed an agreement that looks like it may lead to a pipeline to the West Coast. So will this then create another option? So one that sees Ottawa working with Alberta as a united Canada?
Well, like for some people it might. I mean, I know even among independent supporters, most people would rather see a Canada that works. Like most people who support independence in Alberta, I believe, are actually very reluctant to support independence, and they see it as the only option available now. So if the federal government was actually to make changes that would give Alberta more say in what happens and remove the federal government restrictions on Alberta's economic development, I think that would sway many people back over to wanting to keep Alberta within Canada.
I believe the latest polls still have support for Alberta independence hovering around 30%. So with the latest moves from Carney, will this take some of the wind out of the sails and pretty much kill the independence movement with a loss in the October 19th referendum?
Like, it partly depends on how quickly they move ahead. I mean, right now there's no actual pipeline deal, and that still has to be approved. So if Mark Carney was to move quickly enough and to really, show that he was open to having more economic development in Alberta and start to remove some of the restrictions that Justin Trudeau had put on Alberta, if he was to do that, it would definitely deflate support for independence and reduce the possibility of the independence referendum being successful. That's true, yes.
Right. It could be years down the road, though. Sometimes these things, they move like a sloth in molasses, don't they? So it could be a while. What would need to happen in Alberta in order to see support rise to over 50% in favor of separation?
Well, one of the things would be like the federal government itself. Like, in fact, historically, it's been actions by the federal government that have driven support for independence in Alberta. It's times when we believed, the federal government has been attacking us. For example, the National Energy Program under Pierre Trudeau, and then various climate change policies under Justin Trudeau. So if Mark Carney was to continue those kinds of policies against Alberta, that would drive support. Another factor might be like the rise of a very respected leader. Like we know in Quebec, René Lévesque came forward to support lead the independence movement in Quebec, and that caused support for independence to rise significantly because he was a very respected leader in Quebec. If we had a respected leader in Alberta with the same degree of prominence, if someone like that came to lead the independence movement in Alberta, that could actually increase support possibly enough to make the referendum pass.
Interesting. So you're thinking Danielle Smith's not the right person to lead the province then?
Well, like she doesn't seem to be in support of independence. She has spoken out, against the independence idea and in favor of keeping Alberta within Canada. So at least at this point, she would not be that leader because she doesn't personally support that, at least publicly.
Interesting. Okay, so what are some of the key policies that the federal government would need to change in order to make it worth it for Albertans to stay in Canada?
Well, like two that come to mind immediately were the Impact Assessment Act, which is commonly known as the No More Pipelines Bill. That kind of blocks a lot of the ability of Alberta to develop and export its resources. And another one would be what's called the Alberta Tanker Ban, which prevents Alberta oil from being, exported off the coast of BC. Those are two prominent ones, and there might be other ones like that are part of the climate change package that Justin Trudeau brought in that would kind of stifle Alberta's energy development.
Where do you see this separation movement going over the next decade?
Well, like even if the referendum doesn't go ahead or if it's unsuccessful, I do believe that the movement is stronger than it's ever been before in history. I've studied the history of this. It's stronger now than ever. And if the referendum is held and it is not successful, the movement's not going to go away. Like we have kind of like more of a permanent large size independence movement in Alberta, I think moving forward over the next 10 years, more like they've had in Quebec for several decades. Like there's always been a presence of an independence movement there for a long time, and Alberta is going to have something similar to that going forward.
What are some of the reasons, Michael, that you would like to see Alberta be independent?
Well, actually, I first got involved in this when I was a teenager at the time of the National Energy Program. So I was kind of an early adopter of this. And it's my view that Alberta has not been treated properly by the federal government, like several times in history over the last 50 years or so, because it was actually Pierre Trudeau who created the independence movement with his policies in the early 70s. And Preston Manning put a damper on the movement during the 90s with the Reform Party. And then Justin Trudeau revived the movement with his climate change policies. And so, like it seems to me, there's certain periods of federal government policy that are very harmful to Alberta. And I think the only way we can address that is by becoming independent.
Premier Smith has sort of echoed some of your sentiments there, and I believe that's why she came up with the MOU for one thing. So if things were to get better between Carney and Smith or Ottawa and Alberta, would that change your mind, I guess?
Like it wouldn't change my mind, but it would change the mind of many Albertans. I mean, like I said, most Albertans would rather have Alberta cooperating with the federal government and the federal government not trying to suppress our energy industry. And so if the federal government was to change its policies, it's the federal government that's driving the independence movement with its policies. So the federal government could step back from those policies that are suppressing Alberta's energy industry. That would reduce support for many Albertans for independence. Like not me, I'm kind of a hardliner that way, but I do recognize most Albertans are not like me. Most Albertans would rather have Alberta stay within a Canada that works.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much for your time today, Michael. Really appreciate having you on.
Oh, you're very welcome. I was glad to be on. Thank you.